All right, what's going on, fellas? Welcome back to, I believe, episode 11 of our road to a 600 bench press. Been working hard to get my sleep optimized. I think I talked in the last video about how that is probably my biggest area of opportunity to leverage more strength forward, right? Because the body kind of wants to stay where it is, and we need to create an environment that pushes and facilitates the specific adaptation we're looking for. And lots of good sleep is one of those environmental changes that definitely facilitates the change we want, alongside lifting heavy weights. And I've talked many times on the channel that the biggest thing for me has always been my diet. And I've worked very, very hard on it over time to optimize it, pay attention to my digestion, pay attention to tallying my micronutrients. Done a lot of work, and I would consider myself an advanced dieter. I think I can adhere to a very, very rigorous and stringent and consistent diet better than the vast majority of athletes, and it's something I've worked very hard on. That being said, I would consider myself a novice sleeper. I think it's important to think of sleep as a skill, just like any other skill. Different people have different levels of disposition towards it. But if someone came to me and they said, "Hey Sam, I'm trying to get strong," and I don't have a tremendous disposition to get strong. I've always excelled at endurance activities. And my ability to put on strength, it just doesn't seem to come as easily to me as it does to my friend. I would tell that person, yeah, fair enough, that's totally possible. But I think if you leverage things in the right way and you get really skilled at the training to drive strength forward, you could still get pretty goddamn strong, right? I don't think anybody's claiming that anybody could be a world record holder. We could all be Larry Wheels. Don't think that's what we're saying, but I think that the average person can get quite strong in this long endeavor that is strength training if they truly leverage things in the right way. So even if that strength doesn't come easily to them, they can still put in their work and become at least decent. I am not a decent sleeper. Sleeping comes very badly to me. As long as I can remember, it kind of runs in my family. My dad doesn't sleep. I don't sleep. It's bad. Early onset Alzheimer's definitely is something that is a bit worrisome that comes with that sleep deprivation. But I've woken up 30, 40 times a night for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a kid. Don't have sleep apnea before somebody asks. But we should still think of sleeping as a skill. Even if that skill has some genetic prerequisites to it, if I view it as a skill and I take accountability for the quality of my sleep, hopefully we can improve it, and I can see some low-hanging fruit gains within my gym, because I consider myself an advanced training athlete. I consider myself an advanced dieter, and that's two of the three big rocks. If I can get to being a proficient sleeper, that should amplify the effects those other two parts of my strength training endeavors are having. So I'm going through lots of different trials and errors, and I can keep you guys up to date with it. It's not the most interesting thing. A lot of it's just better and better execution of the basics, dark room, cold room, sleep mask, earplugs, blah, blah, blah. Various basic sleep supplements such as magnesium, GABA, L-theanine, ashwagandha, apigenin, really the kind of stuff that comes up when you search it. And it's going to be the holistic adherence to all of these things, pushing my caffeine earlier and earlier in the day. I've even messed around with doing no caffeine. And the problem with that is every time I have tried it, it's given me the shittiest result possible, which is I don't sleep any better. And then I'm just even more tired because I didn't have caffeine. I think I went 2 months without caffeine a little bit ago. Sleep didn't get any better. So I was just I may as well just add the caffeine back in. But I'm moving the caffeine earlier and earlier in the day, where the only caffeine I'm having is at 10 a.m. Going to progress that even earlier in the day, and then hopefully titrate off of it, because I can get fired up with or without caffeine. And as someone who knows, hey, the thing I need to work on the most right now is my sleep. Even if my training takes a small hit without caffeine and I'm not quite as fired up, that's fine. That's not my area of opportunity to get better. So lots and lots of different things I'm messing around with, fiddling with my sleep schedule, circadian rhythms, looking at the sun, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, I have seen every video you guys have seen, but that's something that is a big piece of work right now. And so far, so good. It's not night and day, just like any other skill. You're not going to go from being bad at sleeping to good at sleeping overnight, just like you're not going to go from weak to strong overnight. But I'm going to keep my foot on the gas there. Nutrition's going great, really consistent. Body weight is finally starting to push up. So body weight's trending upward. Very, very happy with how that's going. And then the third part's the training, and the training is going fantastic. I really have to spend a bunch of time today stretching out the front of my hips, my quads, my hip flexors, to get into my arch for my bench press, because I had a great leg day yesterday, and I'm sure you guys will know that if you push your legs really hard, they tend to tighten up. The front of your hip locks up. And then when you go to get into the bench, try to put the hip into extension, the low back gets into extension instead of the hip. So I'm going to spend a bunch of time doing some couch stretches and some hanging out at the bottom of a deep bodyweight lunge before we start bench pressing to get that hip into extension and feel decent. Got to push my mobility a little bit more. I've noticed that I've kind of fallen off in my upper body mobility. Max actually called me out on it. I was dumping my bench presses due to tightness through my pecs and shoulders a little bit more than I would like. So I've gotten back into doing a little bit of basic mobility for my pecs, and I've gotten back into really hammering my T-spine mobility to give myself every advantage I can in chasing down this 600. Okay, we're done with general warm-ups. Like I said, worked on the mobility of the front of my hip, a little T-spine mobility, got my pecs open, did my warming up, arm circles and all. We're up to 2 plates on the bar. I'll start filming that. But I was middle of doing my 185 warm-up set, and Odie started going crazy because this shit got here. It's the first time I've actually ever had a decent easy curl bar, and I am absolutely fired up about it. Gonna do a bunch of skull crushers, maybe do some overhead extensions, a bunch of curls maybe, we'll see. Really excited, build quality feels decent. Probably should have spent a little bit more money and gotten one with a little bit longer sleeves, but I got these thin plates, and if I break it, I'll buy a better one. But I'm fired up. That opens up a bunch of fun exercises that I haven't been able to do, and hopefully my arms will get less small. Other than that, been getting really nauseous training out in the garage, which is weird because it's actually gotten less hot with fall coming around. We were getting like 100-degree days, pretty standard stuff during the summer. And I was okay. I was fine. I was sweating a bunch, but I would just drink a bunch of salt and water, and it was good. Been getting really nauseous recently, getting a little headache. And I think that's because I have a container of gasoline in the corner of my hot-ass garage. So we're going to fix that. Okay, before we get into the voiceover part, I actually just had something I wanted to talk about, which could be a little bit of fun. Some of you guys have mentioned that you just watch these for entertainment, and some of you have said you like to pick up little things to help in your goals of getting a bigger bench press. And one thing I thought I might talk about is, if you see in that last clip how I did those little pulse reps out of the bottom, 2-3 inches of the bench press, you'll see a lot of advanced benchers, especially bench specialists, especially American bench specialists, for whatever reason, will do a lot of these little pulse reps out of the very, very bottom of their press when they're warming up. Like I said, it seems to be the most prevalent in American bench specialists. You'll see a lot of kind of unique methodologies that, I guess bench specialists, there's the Swedish guys, some of the Japanese guys use higher reps as well, but there's kind of this culture that's emerged in American bench specialists. It's kind of organically emerged because powerlifting is not a state-funded or an Olympic event, right? So we don't have schools of thought in different countries. Like in weightlifting, different countries have different technical models. And you say, oh, I like the German technical model or the Russian technical model. And there's kind of programming styles that accompany those technical models that are kind of built from the top down by the coaches. Whereas this American bench specialist methodology of using lots of rep outs where you just take 2 plates for as many reps as possible, no matter how strong you are, 3 plates, 4 plates, these higher rep sets of 20 plus repetitions, lots and lots and lots of accessory work. Most of the accessory work done for reasonably high reps. You can see a lot of people that fall into this category. You'll see a lot of them will implement these little pulse reps on their warm-ups, and I think this is for 2 main reasons. One of them is there's a massive priority placed on warming up well, because nothing will get in the way of consistently making bench progress like straining your pec frequently, and it's definitely something that when you're really working hard and you're redlining it to push your bench up as much as you can, that is a very, very common thing, just to get a small strain and have to dial back for a little bit. So I think a lot of these athletes place a very high premium in probably over warming up. You'd say, man, this seems really excessive. Things like Wenning warm-ups have naturally emerged, or, oh, I take the bar for 100 reps. These kind of things. And you're like, well, that seems really excessive. And I think a lot of that is a cost-benefit analysis of I would rather be very, have a lot of blood flow, be very warm, and reduce my risk of of injury, even if that means I'm slightly fatigued for my working sets, because the worst case scenario in one hand is just that you're a little fatigued and you perform a little worse. And then the worst case scenario on the other hand is injury and setbacks. So I think some of that's kind of like a naturally calculated decision to over warm up, and the pecs being a big priority of that. You're just kind of pumping out bottom half reps to warm up the pecs. But the other part of that, I think, kind of ties into what we've been talking about with how some people will dump the bar, where they internally rotate, they let their chest fade away. Same thing I talked about last video. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we get this internal rotation at the bottom. I find that when we do a bunch of reps out of the bottom, it feels very, very, very awkward to internally, externally rotate over and over. You more naturally start tightening up your back when you're doing these pulse reps and opening through the pec fibers rather than trying to open through the shoulders. And I find that for a lot of people, I think that's why they're doing it, is they're very muscle bound through their chest and their shoulders, and doing some just like pulse reps out of the bottom helps them establish the pattern that they're looking for in that bottom 2 inches of the press, which for a lot of people is the make or break. So I figured I would talk about that a little bit. What mobility? Okay, I have returned in post to voiceover. I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, but this was my secondary bench day of the first week of my strength phase. So had another top single, nothing all that relatively heavy. I believe it was 415. It's actually 422, but as usual, I'm tracking the bar as if it's 45 for easy math. Warm-ups were feeling pretty good, was making some good adjustments, fixing that error of dumping the bar, which I was very, very happy with because that was like my first and foremost objective for this training session. Watching this rep, pretty good, better than my bench press on Monday. And if I can do a better rep with a greater range of motion like I'm doing on the Yukon bar, that bodes very well for the small fixes in my mechanics I was looking for. I then backed off the weight to 390 pounds, and I did a 5 and a 6. These were relatively easy. My forearm bones were achy as hell today. Not the end of the world. Probably just means that some cool adaptation is happening there, but it was pretty uncomfortable. After I finished up my main bench pressing work for the day, as usual, I moved on to some extra tricep volume because the chest and the shoulders are spent-ish, and I need to make sure that they can recover before my tertiary bench day after tomorrow. But my triceps are nowhere near their maximum recoverable volume, so I always like to fill up a bit of volume. I just filmed my top set, so to speak, and then I did the same thing I did last week, which is kind of a drop set with no real rest times, just left arm, drop the weight, left arm, right arm, drop the weight. Got in some volume after this heavy set where I was looking to beat the books with a +1, which I did. Then just kind of filled in volume using a drop set, got a nice tricep pump, and moved on. I'm also supposed to do grip today, which I took it easy because my back is fried from heavy legs yesterday. Between stiff legs and front squats, my erectors were pretty shot. So I ended up taking it pretty easy, and I did 2 plates for a set of 10 here on these bare hand pendlay rows, and then I did 275 for a set of 8, and then I did 315 for a set of 8, and I called it a day. I didn't call it a day. I then moved on to doing my rear delts for general shoulder health. I also did some extra reps on like a single arm cable row. I guess that's what it would be called. Just to fill in some volume for my lats, because I felt with my erectors pretty fried, I wasn't actually able to work my lats to their upper capacities on these rows like I would like, doing a bit more volume and a bit more weight. So I was like, okay, I got to fill in that volume for my lats on something that's non-taxing on the erectors. So I just did some cable rows. Again, just kind of spam left arm, right arm to get some volume in without a ton of time. And then I finished with these. These I really like. I think they do similar things to just like a regular rear delt fly or a Powell raise or anything where we're just focusing on driving the arms out like that and retracting the scaps. But I really like the feeling these show in my bench press, where I feel really good at my scapular retraction when I'm doing these.